did they pay him? 03456060973. Natasha Clark is LBC's political. Teddy Swims, Lose Control on Magic Radio Home Time. Well done, you've made it to Home Time. Hello, Cashew.
Hello, it's... safely say now that is indeed the case. We've also seen a copy of the vetting report that the Prime Minister saw before he decided to give Lord Mandelson the job. It says this: after Epstein was first convicted of procuring an underage girl in 2008, their relationship continued across 2009 to 2011. Mandelson reportedly stayed in Epstein's house while he was in jail in June 2009. But Tom, we don't know what happens next. We then see emails which talks, it says, your Chief of Staff has discussed Peter Mandelson's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, and your Director of Communications is satisfied with his responses to questions about contact. But we don't know what those are. We don't know what those conversations were. There is a big hole today in these Mandelson files. You heard from Darren Jones, the Prime Minister's chief advisor. It's because the Met believe that could be prejudicial to the ongoing investigation, and they have asked them not to release everything. I imagine that is one of the things we have redacted. We also know, as you say, he was asking for a £500,000 severance payment. He was eventually given £75,000 despite being asked to leave the government. Why? Well, according to those emails from the Foreign Office head of HR, it says there is some carefully placed language around the public implications of not reaching a settlement and the nature of an employment tribunal case. So essentially, they believe that Peter Mandelson could take the government to a tribunal for his own sacking, and that is why they decided it would be easier to settle this big sum with him out of court rather than having all of that dragged through court.
So that might be the quickest way, but is it the right way?
It's a good question, and it doesn't the documents don't go into whether that was the right thing to do, but it does say that it was signed off by ministers. So that was something which I don't know exactly which Foreign Office ministers or people in number 10 signed that off, but I'm sure it would have gone across at least the Foreign Secretary's desk at the time. There are lots of issues here,
David
right?
Lammy.
The Foreign Secretary was David Lammy at the time. And lastly, Tom, we have learned that there were concerns raised all throughout this process. The Prime Minister's National Security Advisor, Jonathan Powell, said he found the appointment process unusual of Lord Mandelson. He called it weirdly rushed. We also learned that he raised concerns about the individual and reputation to Morgan McSweeney, and he responded that the issues have been addressed. Of course, Matthew Doyle, the Director of Communications, and Morgan McSweeney no longer in the government, so can't answer those questions for us today.
Natasha, appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. Natasha Clark, LBC's political editor. Peter Gagan joins us, editor of the Democracy for Sale Substack. Thanks very much for coming on, Peter. What stands out to you so far in the files that we have got?
I think what's quite striking, I think the severance payout issue, I think, is one that is really striking. You can see that Peter Mandelson's asking for, £500,000 effectively. It really is incredible. I think it's incredible, and he ends up having basically, he's able to kind of bargain up to £74,000. That's about twice the average median salary, the median salary in the UK. That is a lot of money for effectively been sacked. And I think that really is quite striking. It kind of cuts to the heart of how Mandelson operated, the kind of operation around him. And also I think it does speak, again, I think it's going to raise more questions about both his initial appointment and his sacking, and the way that was done. I don't think this is going to go away. We could hear there from our political correspondent that the issue of what Morgan McSweeney's involvement in this, I think, is going to come under more fire as well. These aspects of this haven't been released, so in some ways what hasn't been released, I think, is also going to become a big part of this.
And to flip this around another way, might it be that the severance payment, the £75,000, the £500,000 that he wanted that was reduced to £75,000, might be an indication that when the Prime Minister says Mandelson was lying, well, we don't actually have any information that suggests that Mandelson did tell the Prime Minister a lie, or indeed what that lie was. We've just got the Prime Minister's word for it.
I think this is part of the problem with this. I think, you know, the fact that we're not seeing that part of the conversation. And you can see, I think we're seeing some hints at it. Jonathan Powell, who's very much been the foreign policy. If you think about Morgan McSweeney as the domestic policy side of Kirsten